Hello everyone, Achadino over here, and today I'm going to finally make the initial, let's say, build for my Flicker Strike Ancestral Commander. Now I will leave on the background some map that I did. It was kind of, let's say, a peak map where you can see the build, where it works, and how it's going. I'm just looking at my idols for a bit while I talk. Now, as you saw at the beginning of the clip, it's Maze of the Minotaur with Delirium. Also, it has some King Heartbringers, extra attack speed, and extra fire. As something that, well, let's say it's nothing crazy for people that have super good builds, but I'm still on a 5 link. My weapon, I literally alt spammed and then crafted something after using Regal, and I think it's going quite well. It's also very tanky for what it is. Of course, remember, this is a build where we haven't spent a lot of money yet. And one thing that you might see is that we are using brutal charges. I'm using Iron Anguish to get that extra chance of triple damage. Also, the charges that are on the tree, on my Ascendance tree, and also the extra one from the Eventuality Rot. This weapon also enables me to use Trauma. I'm not super Omega Trauma stacking. You can see that I get to 10, 11, 12 stacks maybe. I'm using Multi-Strike. Even with those stacks, it's still one of the best supports. Now, as for how things are going to go, eventually I want to get also Baal Flicker Strike. If you saw my beginning of the league POB, only saw because I didn't post it anywhere, of course. I wanted to get a Baal Flicker Strike thing going also for bosses. I still have it, but right now my Flicker Strike also has one thing, is it doesn't have quality. So I'm getting less frenzy charges than expected. I'm using a gloves to kind of do some things with it. I'm using the Ceaseless Fist. The Ceaseless Fist is going to give us some extra endurance and frenzy charges when a corrosion debuff that stacks on hit is there. This corrosion debuff makes it so bosses that have this corrosion thing is the same as the mini boss for the Eater Worlds, the one that says hunger, hunger, whatever. Well, you get that corruption debuff and you keep stacking it on them, and it refreshes when it gets stacked. So bosses that have faces are still a little bit annoying for me, but nothing crazy and nothing bad for it. Of course, one thing that I want to show you now is the gear itself and everything else. So you can see that we can kind of face tank most things in maps, but don't don't get crazy. You won't be able to do tier 17s or something like that with my current gear. That is very bad. Of course, one thing that you also may want to know is that this league, for some reason, relocation patients are super cheap. I got them for like one divine. My first divine went into them. I dropped the gold, but you can use an normal helmet. Well, normal, a rare one with just some life, maybe a spell suppress or something like that. I'm running zero spell suppress right now, and I'm using the gold because eventually I will, on my super high good build, I'm going to using the shrine runesmith enchanting on my weapon. So the gold is going to be very important. Also, getting that extra power charge or 90% thing corruption on the gold is going to be very good, but forget about that. Our chest is bronze leaf, gives a lot of damage, and you can use the health mastery. That gives us 50% increased maximum life. Now let me put D&D so I don't get spammed for some idols that I have. Now I'm not going to go into my idols or into anything mapping related because There are still some, all of these are some that I got off the ground. I haven't traded for any of these or using the recombinator. There are a lot of guides, people that have done content about that. So just forget about that. Now, as for the build itself, my flasks also are nothing crazy, just a live flask that has the bubbling affix thingy that 50% instantly and then 50% over time. Takes a bleed and corrupted blood off. Kinda good. Silver flask, nothing crazy, with charge on crit, so I can get some charges on bosses. The avoid, freeze, and shield is whatever because we are running Arctic armor, so we are immune to freeze. And then eventually, we don't really care that much about shield. The one and run is Soul of Arakali. I wanted to get the extra chaos resistance against damage over time. I will get it soon. This one is also the one that I'm using to get some extra life recovery if I'm using it on low life because it's going to be instant. It's never bad. You can use others like the less potion duration and you can only get 3. It's very very good because right now I have not much chaos resistance, so I'm very very, let's say, weak against chaos resistance. My idea to fix it eventually is to use the trick with the light thingy from ritual, that you put one here and then here you, or here you put the likely I'm going to go for the one here, Unnatural Instinct, and you get like 100 and something chaos resistance. It's going to be pricey, but that is why it's for the future. As you don't know, I only play one build per league, so I'm going to go full in on this one, farm some mirrors, get some good gear. Now, Flicker Strike is nothing crazy if you have already played it. The only crazy thing that we do is use the Arn's Anguish Belt, Eventuality Rod. I was using a Terminus Else for a long while, and it is still quite fine. I just changed yesterday to the Eventuality Rod, and as I said before, you may lose frenzy charges on some bosses with phases because the corrosion wears off, and also because I don't have a Battle Flicker Strike with quality. They are not pricey right now. They are like 20 chaos or 30, something like that. I'm going to buy it eventually, 2120, likely. Now we are using Endurance Charge Melee Stun, Multi Strike, Trauma Support, and Impale. No 6 links yet, but the 6 link would be likely critical strike damage or awakened melee physical because it also gives us intimidate. We can get also intimidate from other sources, like for example you can get intimidate from here if you have rage, nearby enemies are intimidated. It's a little bit better than the +7 because remember intimidate it's 10% more, and +7 maximum rage is just 7 extra damage if you get to that rage. I'm using this rage thingy because Vengeful Cry and also Warlord's Mark makes it so we get quite a bit of rage even on bosses. We are going to stun bosses sometime, not all of them, because right now my damage is not super crazy. We get also these kinetic impacts and to have mastery and other things. Now, as you can see, I'm also running an eternal struggle. My plan is to change this with the neck from haste that gives you brittle, scorching, and sap conflux. So I get that 20% from sap, and I also cap my critical strike easier, and then I can drop some points on chance and get only a multiplier. That's also for the future, of course. My rings are nothing crazy. Just this ring has dexterity, so I can use my things. You can, if you don't want dexterity on your ring, you can put this point here, proficiency, some mana leech, the reservation. I'm not running enlighten yet. Enlighten is also quite pricey, so just running Pride and also Flesh and Stone and Precision on my life. Using Precision on my life enables me to get the mastery for 1% maximum resistances. It's very good. That way we have 77, 76, 76. If you want to be more tanky, of course, you can get the extra maximum resistances here and here, but I didn't think it was needed with 11 endurance charges thanks to Ralakesh. If you don't have Ralakesh, you are not going to have any endurance charges, so your tankiness is going to be quite lower and also from Fortify. Thanks to how multi-strike works, we are going to do 44% more damage on the last one. If you want to get more Fortify always, to get those 26 tracks, you can use faster attacks instead of multi-strike. Faster attacks and trauma makes it so you can stack trauma more, but that can be a little bit dangerous. Remember, trauma also does a lot of damage to us. Now that is it for the, let's say, normal thing. You have seen how it plays and the gear and things. Now let's go into the PoB. Remember, this build right now has at most 2 divines into it because of the league it is in. Remember, Ralakesh is usually quite expensive and the goal is just whatever. Use a rare helmet, it's likely to be better even. Now let's go into the PoB. How much DPS do we have and everything else? Nothing crazy. 2 million, enough to do tier 16s and to do the initial bosses. I didn't have any problem doing my watchstones. I did die on the Sark, but because I'm bad at the game, not because the build is bad. And I was still even with the Terminus Est at that time. Just changed to the Eventuality Rod just like some hours ago before doing it. Now we also have some block because we are using a staff. Nothing crazy. You can get extra damage instead. Like, but the difference, as you can see, is from 2.2 to 2.6, like 400k damage for 20% less block. Not what I would choose. Now we are only level 94, so we are still have some levels ahead of us. I'm still going to get another socket over here, and all of my jewels that I didn't show on the other side are nothing crazy. They are just percentage life. Some of them have attack speed. As you can see, many of them don't even work with my build. Like some burn damage, some extra fire and cold. Maybe the cold one I did need, but I didn't check. Now my flasks, you might see we have a tincture. This tincture has increased effect and melee attack speed. Ideally, instead of attack speed, it's critical strike multiplier. But I was just doing some alterations, fasty, blasty, and we got this one. Get some damage when we activate it, and if we also pop the physician activate, like if you only have the flask, we get to 85, but with the tincture we cap our critical strike chance. So while the tincture is active, remember it also goes into cooldown for 8 seconds after. I usually deactivate it before it gets too many stacks, but you can also not deactivate it and just go into 0 mana, and then you can get the diamond flask. Nothing crazy. Also, you get to 85. Not bad. We have an onslaught flask that gets a little bit of power from our anoint, graceful assault. A really easy and powerful anoint that you can also use is this one. It's called cornered prey. You just get some chance to bleed anywhere, or you can use vulnerability instead of Warlord's Mark. I am just using Warlord's Mark because it gives me rage and also has chance to double stun duration to get some stun duration on bosses. I'm using Mark on Hit, of course, to apply it instantly. It's giving us some reduced effect, but it's nothing to write home about. And now you may see that I don't have either Berserk enabled, and I'm also using 30 rage on the configuration instead of the 50, no, with the 47 that we have. So this is when we have things. Also, trauma 12 is actually the how much we get, as you can see. Not that I'm trying to cheat on the POB. Same thing with the banner. Corrosion stacks, they get to 30 quite fast, but if you want, you can put them to, like, say, 15. And you can see that it's the same thing. Even getting to 10, the difference is not high. Like from 12 to 20, it's almost the same. When the bosses lose all of their evasion, it's quite the same. This is of course on a Guardian and Pinnacle. On Uber Pinnacle, they actually have less armor and evasion because they have the reduction thingy. But that is it. Now for the fifth, like I said before, you can also use instead of multi strikes, faster attacks, and then you can go to like 40 stacks of trauma quite well, but you're going to hit yourself for quite a bit. I do have some energy shield and divine shield, so I get big regeneration from my trauma stacks, but I don't recommend it. Now that we have this upgrade to the build that I'm going to do soon, just after this video, I'm going to get a Watcher's Eye with extra impale and impale chance. That way I can take off these 4 points here and put them more into damage or survivability. Depends how I set. As I said before, also I'm changing my neck to the haste neck, and then I have to get my strength and dexterity to the same level. So I'm changing my strength to tattoos, likely fire resistance tattoos and other things, and then changing my fire resistance on this ring to another resistance, so it's easier to gear up. And as I said before, we would use and going for an awakened melee physical or brutality, depends. Melee physical because it would get us that, or you can just put the increased critical damage. As you can see here, is the best one, even better than brutality and other things. Momentum is high, but I actually messed up on the last video. Momentum doesn't work with Flicker Strike when you move teleporting, even if you are not moving attacking. It will not stack the 5 stacks of momentum. Yeah, that's why faster attacks is better in that case. Well, that is everything. I hope you enjoyed the build itself. As you can see, it's not super pricey, but just because it's the league it is. Usually you would not have access to Ralakesh this early, but I didn't play with Ralakesh for a long time either, and I was doing fine. Just the difference is you don't use the endurance charge points here to get the endurance from this way, and you would have, of course, a lot less resilience. Now I'm going to do some clips and likely advance the build across the whole Phrecia thing. Do remember that WoW rate and other things are going to release, so the content is not going to be as high. Maybe there is some also PoE2 content that I will cover, but that was everything I wanted to say about the build. Ended up a little bit longer than expected, but nothing crazy. I hope you enjoyed, and as you can see, I'm doing tier 16s and other places with no issue. I'm My idea is to farm the formed invitation while doing destructive play, and with my idols get more of these ones, the Elder Guardian and also Shaper Guardian chance to do. And then for the Conqueror that I still don't have put some Harbinger, because the Harbinger of Regency thing is very cheap. And that is everything. Have a nice day, and I will see you on the next video.